Hello, my name's Tim Hayward. Welcome to today's Cinchora's Talking Tech series. Today we're going to be talking about Azure Virtual Desktop. Azure Virtual Desktop is one of those subjects that a lot of people will be very interested in how it can be used to improve productivity within their workforce, how they can use it to embrace connectivity and being able to connect to those user applications from any device, any platform, anywhere in the world. Today we're going to be talking about how this can be done securely, safely, and in line with your organisation's security practices. Well, traditionally, you may have had a Citrix environment that sat on premises within your data centre. In order to accommodate that, you'll have had to host a whole series of compute capacity, storage, and many other different complexities, all to deliver that one user experience to your users. The key differentiator with Azure Virtual Desktop is that all of this sits in the Azure cloud. The key benefits there are a lot of the services, systems that you would have had to traditionally manage, such as your storage, your servers, you don't have to do anymore because it's all sitting in the Azure Microsoft cloud. Another key benefit is it's all based on your usage. So when you're not using the solution, you don't pay for it. This makes it really useful for 9-to-5 environments or shift patterns where you're only using those solutions during work hours. When you don't need that compute, you can switch it off, deallocate it, and don't pay for it. One of the key advantages of using Azure Virtual Desktop over Citrix is the integration with the wider Microsoft ecosystem. So all of the things that we're used to, such as Enter ID, such as Microsoft 365 productivity apps, all of these interlock with AVD so that we can control who can access the platform, where it can be accessed from. This is really useful in key environments such as healthcare or manufacturing, where you need to ensure that your systems are only accessed from specific locations. If you need to ensure that it's only accessible from within your workplace, that can happen. If you need to make sure it can only be accessible from specific geographies, we can make that happen all through conditional access. The management of Azure Virtual Desktop is significantly less complex than other platforms. If you look at some of the other competing platforms where you'll have multiple administrative interfaces, multiple vendors to work with, such as Citrix, Windows, and your storage provider, everything here is provided within your subscription, within your Microsoft subscription. This enables the management of that environment to be significantly easier to achieve than other platforms. One of the questions that we frequently get asked at Cinchora is what workloads are suitable for Azure Virtual Desktop? The simple answer to that is any workload that you want. We've had experiences of developers using AVD as a development environment. A key benefit here is that the developers can refresh the machine, they can recycle it, they can turn it back to a known state very easily, very quickly. So if you're developing and prototyping products, you can bring that state back to a known state very easily and quickly without the need for support from any other parties in that journey. We also get questions around, well, can we use AVD for graphics intensive workloads, whether that would be CAD/CAM solutions or whether that would be graphics intensive solutions such as Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator. That can all be done with AVD. We can leverage GPU capabilities from the hosts in order to provide that service to our users. Now, previously, if we had a user that needed a graphics intensive remote desktop solution, we'd have had to invest significantly in capital expenditure in order to achieve that. Now we can achieve all of that on a pay-as-you-go basis, only paying for that service as we need it. Azure Virtual Desktop differs from traditional remote desktop solutions in a number of ways. Predominantly because it sits in the cloud. That means that we only pay for what we use. If we're not using the platform, we don't pay for the compute. So if you've got a solution that's not being used for 6 weeks of the year, then we don't have to pay for it. Equally, when we've got a peak season, we can scale that up without having to invest in capital expenditure. One of the key advantages of AVD over Citrix is the ability to reduce complexity within your estate. There's no question that Citrix is a very good platform, but most clients that we come across, they're not using the whole capability of their investment, and Azure Virtual Desktop is more than adequate for what they need. Traditional remote desktop services will have used a server backend. The key challenge with this is that the user experience is not what users expect. Users expect to be able to use a remote desktop solution like they would their own laptop or PC. Connecting to a server in order to access your line of business applications doesn't give that element, that perception of individualism, that perception of the environment being theirs that they're connecting to. The Windows 10 and Windows 11 multi-session environments give the users that personal experience because they are connecting to a Windows 10, Windows 11 environment. One of the key challenges that's always been prevalent in remote desktop services has been using cloud platforms and cloud services like OneDrive for Business, which have never really worked well in that cloud environment. Now with Windows 11 multi-session, that works perfectly. So Azure Virtual Desktop is a fit-for-purpose solution for any vertical. I've known environments in aerospace engineering, civil nuclear that have used Azure Virtual Desktop. It can be configured in any way that the client needs it to. Just because it's in the cloud, it doesn't mean that it's accessible from anywhere. We can put appropriate guardrails around it so that Azure Virtual Desktop is only available and accessible from corporate networks, from managed endpoints, or from specific geographies. If you are in an environment such as healthcare within the United Kingdom, where you need to make sure that your users are in the UK when they're accessing the platform, we can make sure that that is enforced at the point of logon. Traditionally, when you invest in a remote desktop solution, you'll need to invest in a lot of back-end infrastructure, servers, compute, storage, graphics processors, in order to facilitate your users. This can make your journey very expensive from the get-go. The key advantage of AVD is because it sits in the cloud, it's scalable from one user needing one desktop to thousands of users needing connectivity simultaneously. And this can all be scaled as we need to. One key benefit of the operational expenditure is that we're able to scale this up and down as required at times. So if you're in a vertical where you have peaks throughout the year and you can't justify that capital expenditure, you can scale your platform so that it's busy for that 6 months during the golden quarter, and then scale it back down when you don't need those users connecting to the platform. So AVD isn't the right answer to every remote desktop use case, and it's Citrix that it's our responsibility to make sure that you're investing in the right technology for the right job. There are, of course, features and capabilities within Citrix, within Parallels, that may make that a more compelling solution for your use case. It's our responsibility to make sure that you get the right tooling for the right job. That said, there are very few limitations, and when Azure Virtual Desktop came to the scene as a competing platform, there were a number of limitations, and some of those were a blocker. One use case that we frequently came across was the performance of Teams, where if you were trying to engage with a video call through Teams, that the quality just wasn't there, and you would have delay in the video, the mic and video offset wasn't there. Now there are solutions and capabilities that we can put in place to overcome those challenges. Working with your operating systems team, your end user compute teams, for management, we can overcome an awful lot of challenges that were previously there. So a key benefit of Azure Virtual Desktop is you can have your desktop services running in whichever region you want. The Azure footprint is ever growing, and 5 years ago we had a limited number of data centers. For example, in Europe we only had data centers in Dublin and Amsterdam. Now we've got them in the UK, France, Norway and Germany. This enables us to make sure that our desktops are running as close to the user as possible, and when users move from region to region, they can connect to a desktop that is geographically closer to them, improving latency and ultimately improving that user experience. A lot of the licensing SKUs that users will be licensed with, for example, Microsoft 365 E3 or E5, will already come with remote usage rights. This means that when they connect to the desktop in Azure Virtual Desktop, they're already licensed for it, so you're only paying for the compute. You don't have to buy a separate license or rent a license in order to connect to the platform. Where you do have external users or you have contractors that are connecting to the platform, there are licensing options available. AVD can be configured for any number of workloads, even graphics intensive workloads. So if you've got a user who's working on a complex CAD application, that can be configured and optimized in AVD. Yes, these workloads can be expensive to run using the graphics processing units. However, you will only be paying for when it is used. When it is not being used out of hours, you shut down the resource and you're not paying for that capability. The licensing options for AVD are really easy. If you've got a Microsoft 365 E3 or a Microsoft 365 E5 or one of the frontline worker SKUs, you're more than likely already licensed for AVD and you'll only be paying for the compute in Azure. A key benefit of AVD is it can be accessed from any number of devices. It can be accessed from low-powered laptops. So if you've equipped your users with low-powered, cost-efficient models of laptop, that can be configured to connect to AVD in order to use those more intense graphics applications or specific line of business apps. It can also be accessed from iPads, Android devices, and specific thin clients. A really key feature of AVD is that integration with the wider Microsoft ecosystem. If you're already invested in Entra ID as your identity provider or the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, it works really, really well together. The benefit of being able to include conditional access with AVD means you can configure your environments to be accessible from only the places and locations that you want it to. If you want AVD to be only accessible from corporately owned laptops, that can be achieved. If you want it only to be accessible from specific regions or specific countries, that can also be achieved. If you've integrated with Entra private access or Entra internet access, again, we can configure that so that you must be using a secure route through your SASE provider in order to connect to AVD. AVD includes a number of features that optimize AVD for user experience. From a very technical perspective, we can make sure that your traffic is optimized to go straight to the Azure data center. This means that we'll make sure that it's not going through multiple loops in order to get to that desktop experience. The key unique selling point, the key benefit of working with Citrix is, in most cases, we will already be managing your network connection, so we can optimize this to make sure that your experience is perfect for your users. There are also capabilities such as Teams redirection, so that the video and the audio goes straight from the user's endpoint to the person that the user is having a call with, so that it's not going from the user to the Azure data center over to the user, which can improve latency, it can improve the user experience. Ultimately, it can give that perception that the user is using a desktop right in front of them, not one that's sitting hundreds of miles away in a data center. Application management in AVD is significantly easier than it was many years ago with traditional remote desktop services. There are multiple ways that we can manage AVD session hosts. We can either do that with native Azure tooling, where we will install applications and create gold images similar to what you would have for your laptop. But we can also dynamically attach applications to the session host so that when your user logs in, they get the application specifically used for their workload. You can have multiple users from different departments all be presented with different applications. Your finance team can be presented with their finance apps. Your HR department can be presented with their HR apps, and your graphics team can be presented with their apps. And they won't see each other's applications despite being connected to the same session host. The very nature of Azure means that AVD is an excellent option for business continuity and disaster recovery. If you've already got workloads in Azure, you will already have BCDR considered for those workloads. If you've got your workload predominantly in UK South, you've probably got it replicated in UK West. Same principles apply for AVD. In the event of one data center going offline, we can seamlessly transition those workloads to another data center, along with your other line of business applications. Azure Virtual Desktop is a really useful tool for distant learning. If you've got users that are spread across the country, spread across the world, students that may be accessing learning resources remotely, you need to ensure that they've got access to the tools that they need to complete their course. AVD enables that by giving them access to the tools that they need, whether that's a graphics intensive application, whether that's a specific line of business development tool. All of that can be made available through AVD. That means that you've not got to worry about what technology and capability your students have got. If they've got an old laptop that's not capable of running those applications, you only need to ensure they've got an internet connection in order to access those applications. Image management and updates to AVD are seamless to the end user. As we need to scale the environment, we can scale from 5 hosts to 500 hosts within minutes. And all of this will be seamless to make sure that we're giving those users the experience that they need. We'll all be familiar with the monthly Windows update cycle that comes around on the second Tuesday of every month, where we need to reboot our machines. This doesn't appear to the users because this is all managed by the Azure Virtual Desktop environment. As we roll out updates, new session hosts will be provisioned for your users and they'll be cycled through as they connect. So AVD offers a wealth of reports and analytics. We can see which hosts are being used effectively, which hosts are over provisioned, which hosts are underutilized. and we can scale them effectively so that your investment in the platform is optimized. AVD supports organizations in their journey to the cloud by being flexible. Traditionally, when you have scoped a remote desktop solution, you'll have had to think about a capital expenditure that you need to think about for the next 5 to 6 years. Once you've made that investment, it's fixed, that use case is fixed. With AVD, it can be adaptable. So as new use cases come in within your business, you can scale it and you can modify it accordingly. The security element of it as well will always adapt with your business. As Microsoft enhance and improve the Enter ID security model, your ability to control how you connect to AVD and what you connect to it from also changes. The implementation of AVD will save time, money and effort. Firstly, it will save time as it is a cloud solution. It can be implemented very quickly and proof of concepts can be spun up to demonstrate the capabilities to prove that your workloads are suitable for it very, very quickly. Money. AVD will save you money by being scalable to your needs, scaled up and scaled down as you need by your business. The reporting that will be available from your IT admin or your service provider such as Cintura will ensure that we scale it appropriately for the workload, identifying any overusage or underusage so it can be scaled effectively. Effort. AVD with our specialist tooling from Nerdio ensures that we can quickly and effectively update, introduce new capabilities, introduce new applications as they're needed by your workforce. CXOs worry about 4 main things: people, processes, technologies, partners. People. AVD provides a consistent, familiar, customizable user experience to your users. When they connect to the platform, they can feel that it is theirs that they are connecting to. Something that they feel with their iPhone, their Samsung Galaxy phone, something that feels theirs. They can change their background if you want them to. You can empower your users to make it theirs. Processes. Your processes can be enhanced, they can be improved by building your processes around AVD so that when they connect to the platform, they are greeted with the applications that they need in order to fulfill their role. Technology. You will already likely be invested in the Microsoft ecosystem, whether that will be Azure, whether that will be Microsoft 365 or Office 365 for your frontline users. AVD can provide an environment that is familiar and is fit for purpose for those use cases. If you have a frontline worker who works in a warehouse, you can provide them with an environment that gives them access to the application that they need to fulfill their role. And partners. Sometimes we need to make systems available to partners. We can use AVD for that. We don't need to provide our partners with a laptop with our build on it that we need to manage. We can provide them with access to a desktop that they can access with just the application they need to interface with us. Thank you for watching today's Cintura's Talking Tech episode, where we aim to discuss complex technology solutions in easily understandable use cases. Get in touch if you want to know more. Please don't forget to like, follow and subscribe.